Hello, good evening. It's Monica from Life is Art, and it's Wednesday. Let's create. We are going to be making what I'm calling a cornered gatefold card. And I'm just getting my extra little video going on the side there so I can see what's going on. And it has been a lovely day. We did some crafting and chatting today during We Craft Wednesdays. Once we finally got it going, we were having some technical issues, and we're going to have to see how we're going to get around those issues if they continue to persist. For some reason, Facebook and Messenger rooms have not been cooperating, and in fact, even on other people's pages, it hasn't always been working out so well the last little while. So we'll have to consider what we're going to do about that. But in the meantime, we are going to be creating a card. We're going to be using the Memory Lane collection this evening. We're going to be using the Memory Lane stamp set, this one here. And also, we're going to be using the Why Am I Sending This stamp set, which I am loving. And especially that sentiment, why am I sending you this card? I knew it a minute ago. And we're going to actually use that one on tonight's card. Because I don't know about you, but I often have those moments where I forget what I'm about. What do they call them? Senior moments? I'm not senior yet, but I'm having the senior moments. So let's get started. We're going to begin with some pattern paper from the Memory Lane collection. Let me just grab it here. I got a whole stack of little papers. And for this card, we're actually going to start out with pattern paper. And we're going to start out with 2 pieces of pattern paper. And these are 4.5 by 5.5, these pieces. I've got my bone folder ready because we're going to be doing some scoring. I've also got my ruler ready. So if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And if you're watching later on replay, you can just say replay so I know you've been along and watched the video and checked it out. So 2 pieces of pattern paper that are 4.5 by 5.5 inches, and we're going to do some scoring on these. So this first one here, I've got them kind of laid side by side because that's going to be helpful when we're doing our scoring. So we're going to have like a left side and a right side, okay? Left side and right side. So I'm keeping them left and right. So for this first one, we want to score at 1/2 inch. And just lining it up here, scoring at 1/2 inch. And then we're going to come and score it at 2.5. Just like that. Now, we're going to do the exact same thing on this side, but we need to start from the right side of our piece. We're going to do our 1/2 inch over here, and then we're going to come across 2.5. But to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to scooch the left one out of the way. I'm going to bring in the right side, line it up on the Versamat. And we're going to score now starting at the left side, which is the opposite way that I just said, because we're going to leave our 1/2 inch over here. So we're going to score first at 2 inches. But if you want, you can just turn it upside down and score from the left side using the 1/2 inch, then 2.5. So we're going to score at 2 inches first, and then at 4 inches. And that will give us the opposite score lines of the other side. So on this one, we have our 1/2 inch on the left side. This one, the 1/2 inch is on the right side. And then these 2 panels are both 2 inches each. Okay, so that's how you can check to make sure. These 2 panels are 2 inches, these 2 sections are 2 inches, and these are 1/2 inch. So 2.5. Okay, now we need to do some creasing on our score lines. And this first little 1/2 inch, I want to create a, let me see. Actually, you know what? We're going to swap them around a little bit. We're going to bump it this way because I want the patterns going the opposite direction. Totally doable. You want your patterns to go the opposite way? You just switch sides. It's all good. So this first little score line here, we're going to create a valley fold. So this little 1/2 inch is going to be pushing the score line down into the valley and lifting up. So our 1/2 inch creates a valley fold. Okay. And then our next one here, this one that's right in the center of the 2-inch panels, we want to create a mountain fold. So we're going to push the score line up from behind, up the mountain, and make a mountain fold. Now I'm going to lay it down here so that I can make sure everything lines up nice and straight, because our cards always work the best when everything lines up nice and straight. And because I don't use a scoreboard, sometimes you need to be a little bit more precise. So there we go. Okay, so there is my left side. So we've got our big mountain fold and then our little valley fold. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Our little 1/2 inch is going to be a valley fold. So we're going to push the score line down into the valley and lift up the sides like that. And then our score line between our two 2-inch panels is going to be a mountain fold. So we're going to push the score line up the mountain from behind and fold it over. And then we're going to make sure that we line up nicely top to bottom, like so. Lovely. Hey, Ellie, nice to see you're watching. And my mom is here too. Hello, Mom. So there is our right side. So when I did those first bits of scoring, I had it the other way. And then I decided I wanted my pattern slightly different, so I just switched. And you can do that too. All right. Now what we need to do is we need to stick those down to something that creates a card. And this is what I'm calling a cornered gatefold card. So we need to have a panel to start out adding things to. And so this piece is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which is our standard card size. And what we need to do is to take our two sides that are nice and folded, and this little 1/2 inch flap is going to get some adhesive on it. And we're going to line it up along here, but we're not going right to the edge, okay? Because if you remember, this little panel is only 2 inches. And if we fold this one up and tuck that little 1/2 inch flap, our little 1/2 inch flaps are going along the outside here. This one is only 2 inches, okay? So 2 inches plus 2 inches makes 4 inches. And this cardstock piece is 4 1/4. So there's going to be 1/8 of an inch on each side. Okay, so you're going to get a nice little edge of the sapphire blue cardstock showing, which is lovely because it matches with the sapphire on our little houses. So I'm going to turn this over to the flowery side, and I'm going to apply my adhesive onto my little 1/2 inch flap. And I'm going to do 2 lines of adhesive to make sure it gets really well and stuck, because these are the sides of our card, and we do not want them to wander away. We don't want to open our card and have the sides of our card come off. So I'm just going to lay it down here. So there's that 1/2 inch flap going towards the outside of the card. I'm going to take my other 1/2 inch flap and go to the flowery side. This is a nice one to do with a pattern on the back side that is multi-directional. So if you're using a pattern paper that's double-sided like this, and the pattern goes in a specific direction, you're going to want that on the front side. So because my little houses are a specific direction, that's why I had to switch how I had scored it. These are one direction only. And on the back side, we have the flowers, and the flowers can go any direction they want. Okay? Now, before we stick our 2 panels down to the front, I want to do a little bit of trimming. So I'm going to just scooch this over to the side, and I'm going to take my panel and I'm going to open it back up so that I've got my 2 2-inch panels, my 1/2-inch flap. I'm going to line it up on my Versamat so that the top of my piece of paper is right along one of the inch lines. It doesn't matter which inch line, just along one of the inch lines. And what I want to do is on this first 2-inch panel, I'm going to measure down 2 inches and make a mark with my pencil, just like that. Just a tiny little mark. We can erase it later. And then I'm going to take my other panel, my other side, and I'm going to line it back up on here, just like I did with my other one, lining it up along an inch line. And on this side, where my 2-inch panel is, I'm going to measure down 2 inches, just like that. And now, because we're making a cornered gatefold card, we are going to trim with our little trimmer from the crease line right here in the center of the 2-inch panels, and we're going to trim on an angle down to that 2-inch mark. So we're going to trim this corner off. And you will see in a minute why it makes a difference that you don't use a single direction piece of paper for the backside. Okay, and why you want the single direction piece on the front. So we're going to line up with our crease along the cutting line and our little mark that's 2 inches down, and we're going to chop, and that creates a nice little triangle, and you're going to see what we're going to do with that in a minute, in just a minute. Just set that there. Now we're going to come in with our second piece, and again we're going to trim from the crease on this between the 2-inch panels, trim from the crease down to the 2-inch mark on the side. I'm actually going to flip it this way to make it a little easier to get in my trimmer. So we're going to line up the crease here and line up our mark and give that a chop. And we can move that out of the way. And so there's our piece that we've lopped off on that side. Now what we want to do with the pieces that we have lopped off, we're going to take those pieces, we're going to flip them over, and this is why we don't want a pattern paper that can't be flipped. Otherwise it'll make it difficult to do this. But because these flowers are multi-directional, we can just flip it and put it right down on this corner. So we're trimming something off, but we're not wasting it. We're using it on the exact same piece of paper, just to make a fun little corner pattern. So this is what's giving us that cornered part of the cornered gatefold. And there we go. Now you could ink the edges of your paper if you want this to stand out more. You can do all sorts of things, but you can now see when it's folded up that we have that floral pattern in both of the corners, which is super fun. So let's do the same with our other piece. We're going to take this corner that was chopped off from up here. We're going to flip it and stick it down at the bottom. Easy peasy. And I'm using liquid glue for this because it's just a little easier. And we'll stick it down here. How's everybody doing tonight? You guys are seemingly so quiet in the chat tonight. It's okay to be quiet. Okay, so we've got our 2 panels now again. And we've got our folds in the center. We've got our little flaps on the outside. And now we're going to stick it down to our Sapphire cardstock. Let's take the backing off. We've got 2 strips of it here. Okay, so now here's where we need to make sure that everything's folded up. We're going to fold it up, and we're going to come here, and we're going to line ourselves up on the Versamat and start putting this down an 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of the cardstock. And so an 1/8 of an inch is half of one of these little 1/4 inch marks that's on the Versamat. So if you're using your Versamat, that makes life pretty easy. And we want to stick it down fairly straight, although I'm pretty sure I just did it crooked. But it's down now, so we're going to leave it there. Now, when I was trimming my pattern paper, I was a little generous. And I noticed this with the example that I made. I was a little generous with my pattern paper, and so my pattern paper actually sticks up, not even quite a 1/16 of an inch at the top. And that's okay. I can just trim that off with my scissors afterwards. And then we're going to come in with the second one. And this one, although we could measure in an 1/8 of an inch from the edge, what we're going to do is we're going to have our nice sticky bit folded backwards. We've got our center crease here folded down, and we're going to use that, and we're going to butt it up against the first piece that we put down, and that will keep us nice and lined up so that our center meets exactly where we want it to meet, and then we can lay down that sticky strip. So now we have our fun sapphire edge, and then we have our gatefold that opens up like this. Now, when you look at this, you say, okay, that looks a little weird because we got stuff going on in the middle here. And so to cover that up, we're going to come in with a piece of white daisy cardstock. And this has been cut to 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. And I will post the measurements, okay? So this is 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. Just going to add some adhesive on the back. And this will line up in the center between those two panels of pattern paper, but it will leave just a tiny bit of the pattern on this back part visible. And I think that's kind of nice, and it also allows the card to fold up nicely, because if this was jammed right in the corner, it would be kind of bulky and hard for it to fold down flat. So I'm going to actually turn mine sideways, and I'm going to line it up centered in between those two side panels, line it up with the top, and lay it down just like that. Okay, so now we've got that nice white center panel where we can write our message in the inside of our card. But let's also go ahead and add a little sentiment. So I've got the sentiment from the Memory Lane stamp set that says, sending you a big hug. And I love this one because there's lots of times when you can send somebody a big hug. It can be a congratulations. It can be a get well. It can be a happy birthday. It can be a happy anniversary. It can be a promotion. It can be sending you a big hug as you go back to university or school for the year. Lots of reasons to send a big hug. So I'm going to use my Sapphire ink for this. And we're going to ink up our sending you a big hug. Just like that. And we're going to stamp it right in the upper center of our card. And then I thought, let's add a little bit more decoration on there. So let's bring in our little stitched heart from the Memory Lane stamp set and our Melon ink. And Melon is our retiring color of the year. Literally like one more day that as the color of the year. So I thought, let's go ahead and use it. Let's add a few hearts to our card. One more day in the limelight as the color of the year, and it creates a nice little focal point on the inside of our card, but still plenty of room to add our message and write whatever we want to say in there, tuck in a gift card, anything you want. And it's also nice and flat when you embellish with your stamps because you're not adding any bulk, just pretty lovely things. Okay, let's move back out to the front of our card. And you can see we've started creating a bit of a diamond shape on the front here. And we're going to accentuate that by adding a piece of sapphire cardstock on the diagonal And this piece of cardstock has been cut to 3 inches by 3 inches. And we want to attach it only on one side because if we attach it on both sides, we're not getting our card open. So we're only going to attach it on the left side, and we're going to do that with some foam tape. And I like to do that by flipping it over to the lighter side of the double-sided cardstock. We can even bring in something to help hold it down so it doesn't bounce around with all those folded bits. And then we're going to add some foam tape on there. Hey, Michelle, nice to see you're watching. So we're just going to add some foam tape just to the left side. And we can use that center join as our guide for where to put our foam tape. Like so. One more piece over here. There we are. And kind of scooch that up out of the way. Take the foam tape off. All the little bits. This is always the fun part, where you're just peeling the backing. And nothing exciting is happening. Just peeling the backing. Okay, so now we want to make sure we have our foam tape on the left side. And we're going to come in here. And the point of our card is going to be right over towards the edge. We want to try and leave an equal amount of our pattern paper showing, and we want to have our 2 points, top and bottom, lining up along that center join, just like that. So we've got an equal amount of the little houses showing, then we've got our florals, and I love how the sapphire comes right to the edge, kind of makes a nice divider there. Okay, so that's our sapphire cardstock. And then we're going to add a panel of white daisy on top of that, which is 2 3/4 inches square. And I'm just making sure that I've got the right piece because I actually have 2 pieces of cardstock. Oh, they're both the same size. Excellent. In case I make a boo-boo, I have an extra. I couldn't figure out why I had 2. So this is 2 3/4 inch square. And this is going to get centered right on that sapphire cardstock. So I want to make sure that as I'm going to stamp something on it right now, that I keep it in that diamond position, okay? Because I want my sentiment to be straight, but I want it to be straight on this way, not this way. That makes sense? Straight on the diamond, not straight on the square. So I'm going to use the sapphire ink again, because it looks so good with this. And I'm using the sentiment. Why am I sending you this card? I knew a minute ago. And so we're just going to ink that up. And we're going to line it up on our card front. Hopefully straight-ish. Give it a little press. Allow that ink to transfer. And there we go. Why am I sending you this card? I knew a minute ago. And we can go ahead and add that on our card. Let's grab our adhesive. And then we're going to need to do some embellishing. And so for this card, we're going to stamp another image. Actually, I've stamped it already just to have one step done. And we're going to do some coloring. So let's center this on our piece of sapphire. Again, we're going to make sure that those 2 points, top and bottom, are following that center join. And that helps you keep everything nice and straight. And then I want to bring in the little floral cluster that's in the Memory Lane stamp set. This one right here. Nice little group of florals already all grouped together for us. And we're going to do some coloring. I've got some of my tri-blend markers here. The first thing I'm going to do is the leaves. And I found that to create the sage color for coordinating with this paper from Memory Lane, you want to first start with the light green and use the lightest of the light green. These are tri-blends, so there's 3 different shades of the color. So we're going to start with the light green, like that. And just quickly color those leaves in. We're also going to color in the stems of these little guys that are sticking out here. And the light green is a beautiful color in itself. However, it is not the sage color, which is the coordinating color with this paper collection. And so it looks a little too bright for matching with the paper. So once we're done with the light green, we're going to come in with our brown gray. Kind of weird, but it works. We come in with the brown gray, and we're going to come in with the lightest one of the brown gray, and we're just going to color over top of the light green with the brown gray. And go all over those leaves again, like so. And a few times when I've done this, I've actually colored over them twice. So if you do it once with the brown gray and you decide it's not quite the right amount for sage, then you can just color over it a second time with the brown gray. But I think one time is going to work just fine for me. So you can see how quickly that dulls down that bright green, and it gives you just the right color that you need for matching with sage. And then I want to come in with my coral, and I'm going to use the mid color on the coral, and that compares to melon, I find. So we're gonna go, oops, this is the wrong one. I made a boo-boo. That was coral shades. I want the regular coral. So we've got a nice little dark spot there. That's okay. We'll blend it in. So we're on the mid of the coral. Yes, confirmed. Check, check. And we can go ahead and color this larger flower like so. I made that mistake earlier, actually, where I colored with the coral shades. And I should have put the marker away so as not to make that mistake again. Who else has done that? Picked up the wrong color and colored with it, and then you're like, oops. We'll just call it a shadowy spot. It's just where we've created a little bit of shadow underneath the edge of that flower, and we'll just kind of blend it in and not worry about it. So there we've gone over with this, and I think I'm going to do the center of this flower, well, around the middle part of this flower, in the same color. And, yes. Oh, and now I know why we have the, now I know why we have the coral shades. It's because I will use it in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and use the lightest coral just to color these little sections in the inside of this, and also around the middle part of this flower, like so. And then let's grab the gold yellow, and this gold yellow, the lightest one, looks a lot like honey butter. So we're going to go ahead and color the center of this flower, and we're going to color the petals of this flower in this beautiful light gold yellow all the way around. Who else plays with their markers until they find the ones that match the color they're looking for? I know some of you do. And let's see what else. Oh, I wanted to also use the coral, the lightest coral, for the center of this flower. So there we go, the lightest coral for there. And now we want to bring in those coral shades. We're going to use the lightest one. That's why I didn't put it away, because we were going to use it. We're just going to use it here on this flower. Like so. All the way around. You could also use the darkest of the coral for this. It doesn't have to be the coral shades, but it gives it a nice little pop. And in this case, it kind of makes up for the fact that I did a little boo-boo. Alrighty, now we get to do the fun part. We get to do the fussy cutting. And so we're going to go around. We're going to leave a little bit of white edge showing. We call that a little halo. And just twist our paper as we fussy cut all the way around. And I'm going to try and go quickly. I usually go a little slower than this. So we'll see how good I am today. You've done it many times, Michelle. Yep, it's inevitable. Yep, we start out with one marker and we end up with the wrong one, and it's all good. And if we're really concerned, we just stamp it again and start again. I wasn't that far into coloring it, but we're just going to let it go for today. My example looks better. Maybe I'll take pictures of the example instead of the one that I just did. Nah, it doesn't matter. It's all good. We'll blend it in. And going all the way around, the idea of leaving that halo of white is so that if you get a little too close, you're not chopping right into your stamped image. And if you wander, then you can go back and fix it. And you just go all the way around. I also like to use the back end of my scissors for this down near the join as opposed to the tip of my scissors. I find I have better control the closer to my hand it is. I don't know if you guys find the same thing. I'm hurrying, so I'm not doing the best job of this, but you know. There we go. And I do paranoid or extra things sometimes. And I trim off a little extra, if I can find my, oh, there it is, right beside me. My blade, I'm going to take out this little section right here, because that little extra bit of white just kind of grates on me, so I always have to trim it out. Weird, I know, but it is what it is. So I don't know about you guys, those things probably don't bug you as much, but... And then we can add our nice little floral cluster right here to the bottom. So we're going to add a little bit of foam tape to do that, just to give it some dimension and some lift off of the card. We want to make sure that we don't add foam tape anywhere the florals are going to touch the back side of the card, because we want our piece to lift and to open up nicely. So keep your foam right in the center there where it's going to touch our diamond. And I also want to make sure that there's a little point of that sapphire showing down at the bottom, just so we don't chop it off altogether. It's nice to have that little bit of sapphire showing there. And then we need a little bit of bling, because we can't make it without a little bit of bling. So I've got my clear sparkles and my bitty sparkles. Because if you need just a little bit of bling, then some little sparkles are just great for that. And if you've never seen the bitty sparkles, I don't know if I'll be able to show you this close, but those are the clear sparkles, and these are the bitty sparkles. You see how much tinier they are? Can you tell that? So the bitty sparkles are super tiny, which means they're really hard to pick up, especially with your fingers, especially my fingers. So I like to use my piercing tool to just kind of scoop them up, and I'm going to stick a bling right there. Then I'm going to scoop up one of these little bitty sparkles and stick one right there. And they're so tiny, I almost kind of lose them on the Versamat. And one right there. But I would never be able to, you know, pick them up and get them in the right place with just my fingers. So using the piercing tool makes everything a little bit easier. And it makes sure that the little glue dot comes along with it, because that's a teeny tiny little glue dot. So we're going to add 5 little sparkles on there, and that is our finished card. So we started out with our pattern paper, folding and scoring and creating this gatefold card. Then we chopped off our little corners to create a nice little angle, which looks really pretty when it's on display. We've got nice little angles. but we didn't want to waste that, so we added our florals down at the bottom. So we've got this nice diamond inside of a diamond, inside of a diamond, inside of a diamond going on, which is super fun. And of course, we've got some little sparkle diamondy blings going on. I like that we have that nice outline of the sapphire on the base, as well as this square, our cute little floral cluster that matches what's happening in our floral paper. And then we've got our lovely little houses on the inside, because that's really my favorite. I love the little houses. And sending you a big hug. So it doesn't matter why I'm sending the card, but it includes a big hug. So I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that cornered gatefold card come together. And if you decide to make a card like this, be sure to take a photo of it and pop it in the comments underneath where I post the photos, because I would love to see what you create. All right. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you again soon. Toodaloo. Bye.